Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Wilco, and thanks, Ank, for inviting me here. This is not my usual audience. So I'm a chemist by birth, I tend to say. So I love organic chemistry, and if I could do my wish, I would almost go back into the lab. It has not been like that. I joined AkzoNobel 22 years ago. AkzoNobel is, of course, one of the bigger chemical companies. It certainly used to be one of the bigger chemical companies in the Netherlands. But pretty quickly was taken out of that lab, and I went into sales and marketing. Spent some time in the US, so I apologize that I cannot emulate your wonderful accents, and probably am more on the USy side of things, especially with my wife being from the US. Then I was asked to join Arthur D. Little. And Arthur D. Little, maybe some of you know them. They have a deep background and history in innovation. And that's exactly what I did. I worked for the chemicals practice doing strategy and innovation. This is also where I picked up a bit of a love for agro. Because one of the developments in the chemical industry is definitely towards bio-based and towards circular. And I'll be talking about that quite a bit. I was asked to come back to AkzoNobel in supply chain. And after that, I became the CTO, the Chief Technology Officer for the chemicals business. And I've also left that behind, and I've now moved to the side that I try to move into AkzoNobel, startups, doing partnering with startups predominantly. And I will work now with startups, actually getting them in connection with those corporates. Because maybe similar to agro, if you're a startup in chemicals, it's almost inevitable that at some point you're going to have to partner, because the entry barriers in the chemical industry are so high in terms of scale, so capital that you will need to build your manufacturing facilities. In terms of regulatory, probably the chemical industry is one of the most regulated industries that we have, maybe after banking at the moment. And then also customers, including probably some of yourselves, are very demanding. So it's very difficult for a customer to put faith into what they would consider a small startup, which may not have the means to actually sustain that production. I've been asked to talk about open innovation. I've had the pleasure, as Wilco said, to work with KPMG. So you'll see some KPMG stuff. In that sense, I'm maybe also a bit of an advertisement. But I'm okay with that because I've enjoyed it. Collaborative innovation, this is billed as open innovation. I'll talk to you about the choice for the words open and collaborative. And collaborative or open innovation, especially if you're in corporate, I would say, that's always a bit the pinnacle. So as soon as we talk about innovation management, if you're a CTO like I was, then you're sort of the first thing when you talk to colleagues and when you talk to consultants is, oh, we need to do open innovation. But I think the important thing is that we don't do open or collaborative innovation just for the fun of it. There's really an important reason, and there's really an important reason right now in this space that we need to do, certainly in the chemical industry, what I would submit also in many other industries, to do collaborative innovation. And that's this picture. So this is the picture of what is happening and what has been happening. I made this for the chemical industry, as you will understand, but it is, I think, similar for others. So if you look at how business has developed, then the chemical industry formed sort of in the mid-1800s. And it based itself mostly on actually natural materials that came out of agro, fats and oils, pigments that we mined, and those became the first chemical industry products, paints and coatings. And then at some point in the 30s, 40s, the 50s really, and then the 60s, we entered into the chemical business of today, which is the petrochemical business. We discovered coal and gas and oil, and we discovered that you can refine that, you can fractionate it in a big refinery, and you can make all sorts of wonderful materials that you can then transform, for example, into plastics. And plastics have really been the big driver of the petrochemical industry. So that's today's business that you see, and the red line is sort of where we are today. innovation was fierce in the 60s. People would really literally go into the lab. I would have loved to have been there. They would do a few experiments, come out with a new material. Let's go sell this. It's great. That's how it went. The last 20 years, certainly actually the time that I entered the industrial lab, innovation has been much slower. So I think in the last 20 years, there's probably only 1 or 2 new plastics that have been introduced into the market. And that is immediately, if you're in innovation, you track this S-curve. And this big S-curve for the petrochemical industry, that's immediately an indication this era is coming to an end. You start to see problems arising now. I think we don't have to talk very much about the problems of plastics that we are encountering. And at the same time, those who are looking can see the development of something new, which is that second curve over there, tomorrow's business. And in the case of the chemical industry, that is the non-fossil business that will form. At some point in time, we're going to transition from fossil to something else, probably bio-based, probably circular, using waste as a raw material, instead of the linear industry that we've had. So if you look at today's business, then beyond the chemical industry, certainly what I see is that today's business was about mechanization. I think you'll recognize that. Mass marketing. I think phenomenal progress in how you mass market things to people. It is fantastic what we've learned to do. Fossil and extractive industries that have developed in general, taking something out of the earth, turning it into a product, using that product and then discarding it. And that's definitely coming to an end. So if you're in marketing, you can see there's an individualization happening. Not mass marketing, but individual marketing, helped by digital technologies. Electrification for the car industry, bio-based. In general, we need to move to circular. And these developments are the reason that we need to look at open innovation, as I will talk to you. Because these developments present a dilemma. And it's a dilemma that I have in my company. I'm sure that you might have it in your companies. Because we're up here. Things are great. We know how to do this, right? We know how to do mass marketing, turning fossil into products. We make a lot of money with that. So there's not a whole lot of incentive from the business side to move to something else. At the same time, there are people in your companies, in my company, that are saying there's something new over there. This might take over. This old stuff cannot go on like this. And I typically see sort of a bit of a range of then people, managers, executives perhaps. Probably on the one hand, those people that say, well, you know, I've seen this before. It won't go so fast. How can we do it? Is it even possible if we don't keep doing it the old way? So that's one group. There's another group that will say, it has happened before, these transitions. Look at how the petrochemical industry formed on top of the old one. There are so many examples. We must move now. And then there might be people in the middle saying, well, you know, maybe we can wait. It might happen, but maybe we can wait. And with our cash flow, if something of interest shows up, we can buy it. Let's do that. The bottom line here is this is a dilemma, and how do you solve that dilemma? And I submit to you that open innovation, collaborative innovation, is actually the most efficient way to solve this. Because open innovation takes into account there might be different scenarios. It might take longer. It might take longer. But it could also be a bit faster. So we need to address those different groups in companies and say, yes, that could happen. But what can we do now to deal with this particular dilemma? And so what we have to become as corporates, as companies, is what is called the ambidextrous organization. So the two-armed organization. On the one hand, the right hand, is we have to continue to exploit. There's nobody saying we need to drop everything today. We need to exploit, and we need to keep on improving these existing business models. Yeah, make sure that we keep supplying. There's a world to feed, even with how we do things today. But on the other hand, we need to make sure that we have a left hand that explores inventing new and disruptive business models. And I've got a picture from my former company that I worked for, which presents it as sort of two halves of the brain. So on the left-hand side of the brain, that's exploit evolution in terms of innovation. It's more corporate control and monitor. It's about scale, optimizing. It's about cost. And this is something we've obviously done very well. But we also need to have the right hand of the brain, the right side. Revolution. And that's where you see startups. We need startups. Trial and error, speed, create breakthroughs. To do that, you do that by collaborative innovation. This is the part where I talk about open versus collaborative. I've noticed that when you talk about open innovation, especially to people who are not deep into this, they don't like open innovation because they think it's sort of for free. Right? You come into my company, you take my IP, and we just do something. And I think the origin of that word has come from the innovation funnel. So typically when you manage innovation, you do that by means of a funnel as is shown here. So there are ideas within the company at the beginning. Those ideas are developed through development and then commercialization towards the market. Some ideas don't make it, and therefore it's a funnel. It gets thinner at the end. If you have an open innovation funnel, then what you also do to enrich the ideas, to make them better, you take capabilities from outside, from partners. Or you might have an idea that is actually successful, but you realize that we will not commercialize it in our markets. But that doesn't mean it's not valuable. We can spin it out. And that's how the open innovation funnel formed. And that's how we started to use this term, open innovation. But to do open innovation is actually doing collaboration. It's about collaborating with people that bring in knowledge. It's about collaborating with people that take over knowledge. To deal with the dilemma, collaborative innovation is the way. So then how can we set this up, this collaborative innovation? And there are a number of ways. And I will talk about two in detail. But what I want you to understand is that it is important that we use instruments that do two things at the same time. So first of all, it should be an instrument that delivers a business goal, a business value. We want to make a new business model. We want to bring new products to the market. But while doing that, what I want as a CTO, as a responsible for innovation, I also want to affect the culture of the company. So I'm looking for tools, I'm looking for instruments that allow me to create new businesses, and at the same time they affect how people, how the employees, how the managers and executives, how they think. So they combine a means and an objective. Step change projects is, I think, a perfect way to do these two things. You want to find projects that are a visible commitment to try new disruptive business. And I was so pleased to hear a number of those examples like yours here today. That's the kind of stuff that you're looking for. And learning by doing. I'm sure you cannot pick an apple with a robot at once. You got to try stuff, right? That's what this is about. Learning by doing, quick experimentation. A group of people working together. And the second example, and this is the example that we worked on very much with KPMG, is to get involved with startups. And startups are so wonderful, not only in their passion and the energy, but also because they've done work that we as a corporate can pick up on. So it reduces the time to market. And the other thing that is so wonderful when I have my organization work with startups is that they make us be surprised. I've got people that have not seriously, I'm not going to tell them this, I can tell that here, that have not seriously innovated probably in the last 20 years. They've done a lot of innovations, a lot of incremental ones. And when I proposed to them, let's start working with startups, they said, no, it could be an idea, But honestly, I've been in this business for 30 years, Peter. You've been here for 15. We know all the startups. Lo and behold, we got surprised. I'm not going to talk about academic collaborations, even though I realized from the previous slides that there are a lot of academics in the room. That's not because that's not important, but certainly in my sector, working with academics is actually rather common. I'm not saying it couldn't be better, but this is not something that is a step change in our minds. Because you remember that I said it needs to be, I want to combine means and objective. I'm also not going to start talking about acquisitions. I think acquisitions can be a great add-on if you get involved with startups. Bottom line here is if you want to change your way of working, change the way you work. And that's what we're trying to do with these tools. So let's talk about about two step change projects, mindful of time, and to see, okay, what could that be? So this is a project which is called Waste to Chemicals. And remember, chemicals are being made out of fossil resources, right? So in this case, we have a technology actually from Canada, which takes what is a pretty heterogeneous material, and heterogeneity, is that a proper word in English? That is something that the chemical industry does not like, right? They like something as a gas, which is pretty predictable. They like oil, but something like household waste, which can vary week by week, which varies in composition by the season, that's not something that we like. There's a company that has worked 15 years developing a technology that turns that heterogeneous waste into synthesis gas, which is a feedstock for the chemical industry, purified synthesis gas. Now this is wonderful, because if we can get a chemical feedstock like that, a base feedstock, we can turn that into chemicals. That gets turned into everyday materials, and of course it ends up in the bin at some point in time, and we take it again. And now we've got that circle that I talked about earlier. This is fantastic. This is where we want to go. This is transformative. This is disruptive. It's also difficult. So this requires, and I talked to you about this, 250 million and probably a bit more, right? We think it's 250, but it's probably a bit more. It's a first of a kind. This is a new value chain. We in AkzoNobel we know nothing about waste. And we hardly know very much about base chemicals, because this whole chemical industry has been cut up in pieces and companies that specialize. Also, what's very difficult here is we probably need to have some kind of collaboration with the government, with local governments in the Port of Rotterdam, with the national government that somehow needs to help make some of these things possible, with provincial governments that need to direct the waste to this particular venture. So this is really an example of a step change project where we're gonna learn by doing. In the beginning we thought there wasn't enough waste in the Netherlands to do this. People told us, oh, there's not enough waste, you can't do this, because you need a lot of waste for this. A year later, there is plenty waste. This was not the problem. Really learning by doing. People are looking at it. It's a big project. If it fails, it will have a real impact. If you do small innovations in your unit, in your lab, something fails. Nobody sees it. You can go out with your successes. This one's big. This is national stage. We're involved. That's also positive, by the way, because I know that the people working on this one will work damn hard to make it work. So these things come, the knife cuts on two ends. Completely different step change project. We have here on this part, this is the largest chemical research laboratory of AkzoNobel, which is in Deventer, somewhere in the middle of the country. And we have here a manufacturing site of AkzoNobel. So we were sort of sitting there as an add-on to that, living our life very happily, innovating, until we decided that we needed to close this part, which was a bit difficult, because we were really getting a lot of services from that part of the site, which meant that our costs for rent and cleaning and what have you would go up quite substantially. And so we proposed actually, well, can we not, instead of selling the land, which was the plan, can we not turn this into an open innovation center? And that will do two things. First of all, it will dilute my costs of cleaning. It's as simple as that. So that's the business objective. And we have some pretty nifty equipment and some pretty smart people delivering services, research services, to my larger research group. And I can open that up. That's where you do open innovation. I can make that available. They can buy that. And that again will help me make that more resilient and more sustainable. So that was one objective. The other objective is that whilst these people, I think, are pretty smart, they're also rather internally oriented. And if I can host 300 researchers from small and medium size and maybe a bigger company here, from startups, they start to interact, I'm pretty sure something will happen. There will be some chemistry happening there between people. And that's something that I needed. I needed opening up. I needed the windows open. So instead of selling the land, we started to work with the city government. We started to work with the provincial government. Of course, I had to work with my board. I said, let's do this differently. Let's start what we now call the Spark Open Innovation Center. And there is a long-term view, which of course we have drawn in this particular way. Again, very visible. The first time I mentioned this to my teams on the site, they looked at me incredulous and said, what? Why? Very visible, and after a while it starts to change the culture. People see that you're doing things differently, and doing things differently ultimately leads to a culture change. I want to move to the startups, the Imagine Chemistry example. How do you collaborate with startups? Because that is a bit of a hype. Again, when I started as CTO, I noticed quite a number of startup challenges. And of course, I'd love to do something that others have done well, but how can we make this work? I think on the left side you see, well, startups have a number of wonderful things. They've got innovative ideas, fresh perspective, passion and energy, all the things that you also see in some of the movies that we've seen here today. What we have is maybe not that, but one thing that we have, and I think this is a real differentiator for how we work with startups, we have real life business challenges. We have things, when I asked, maybe not one time, two, when I asked 3 times, there were things, lo and behold, that our researchers said, yeah, okay, these are things that the customers want and we can't really deliver it. Maybe if we put some more time on it, but maybe there's another way with your startups. Real life business challenges. And what we have is an ability to bring things from ideas from lab to production. And we know pretty well how to be safe and how to be operationally excellent. And I think that's where we found a potential marriage made in heaven, because we really know what we need to change. We could stick out a flag into the world and say, we're looking for anyone who has a solution to this problem. And that might be a chemical startup, but maybe it's an agri startup. We don't know. So that's the differentiator here. Very, very collaborative. One of the things that I did not like about so many examples was that they were working from the premise that you as a startup, I don't know how many there are in the room, should be happy. You should be really glad that you can work with us, big company. Very often the contrary is true. It is, they know they have to, but they certainly don't enjoy that. So we based the challenge on mutual respect, collaborating as equals. Different, but equal. No intellectual property claims, no equity claims in advance. And you may think that that's pretty normal or reasonable. I can tell you it is not. Very many challenges, little sentences say, you're giving away something. And I'm sure that if you do that, you actually will not get the best startups to your challenge. You will not get the best partners. Who wants to have a partner that doesn't respect what that partner needs? If I take care of you, I know that I have a pretty big chance that you will take care of me. Talked about business impact, real life business challenges. It's not a beauty contest. So many of these challenges are beauty contests. Startups show up, they parade their technologies, thumbs up, thumbs down, $25,000, euros, whatever is exchanged hands, and we go back into the lab doing our usual work. That doesn't do what I need. That doesn't change my culture. It doesn't give me business opportunities. One-stop shop, all aspects of a business plan in one event. So we invite 20 startups. After an initial online phase, finding those startups, we invite 20 to come to our research site or sites. And they meet not just R&D, they meet IP, they meet regulatory affairs, they meet sales and marketing, they meet finance, they meet supply chain, they meet everyone. It's almost like a speed dating event. And at the end of 2 days, we know who we can go to market to. And the award, therefore, is it's a commitment to a collaboration. We're going to collaborate. I think we have a short movie at this point in time, so I'm... Wow. Amazing.
Morning.
Morning. How are you doing?
I want to start giving a very warm welcome to the finalists who have come from far and wide. We're very proud, and I hope we will develop many successful businesses together in the coming days. So what we are looking for is fresh ideas and new perspectives.
We need influences from the outside, and with the right ideas, we can actually make a major impact on the world going forward.
And that's where Imagine Chemistry comes in.
Collaborations is the future, that's my firm belief, and we can't do everything ourselves, so we have to find the best partners and collaborations.
We've got invaluable feedback from the experts here at AkzoNobel. They have challenged us, they have supported us, and they have really helped us move this process along to see where else it could be used in the world.
So basically, this is not just an ordinary challenge, which we have seen a lot, but this is more focused on how could we more elaborate and perfect what we are busy with within our business.
The first joint development agreement offered by AkzoNobel goes to Solingen.
This process that we did at Imagine Chemistry would usually take months. We did that in 2 days.
The second joint development agreement goes to Waternight.
I think there's a lot of brain power here. You're not just talking about technology, there are people from market, there are people from business, and everyone has a different angle to look at it. And then suddenly we have a discussion that enlightens, hey, that is possible.
Green Lizard Technologies.
When I go back to my company and explain this experience, it's going to be an eye-opening paradigm shift for them, because nobody in the US is currently pursuing collaborative research in quite the manner that AkzoNobel is doing with the Imagine Chemistry platform.
The fourth and final joint development agreement, and it goes to Ferrolabs.
It's a great feeling. It's great to have so many amazing companies on stage with us. It's a relief. It's a wonderful way to end an otherwise fantastic few days.
This year's Imagine Chemistry was even better than last year.
Well, collaboration is important, because if you want to do something new, you rely on creativity. Now, creativity is something that is born between people, and that's when you get transformative things happening.
Still nice to see. I'm getting to the end for those that are getting nervous here. So this is a picture of, let's say, the collaborative innovation instruments that we have applied for our company. But I want to emphasize that this is by no means a one-size-fits-all. So I think if you're a corporate and you want to affect your culture, you really have to think about the 2, 3, 4, now maybe 5 things that you want to do that will help you in the most effective way. Because we could have done 5 more things, but it's really these things that I know will affect our culture and will really allow us to explore new business. And so it will be different for each of you. Why again open innovation? It's the dilemma. We don't do open innovation, collaborative innovation because it's fun. It is fun. It is fun. But we do it because we're dealing with the dilemma. We are in successful businesses and there are new businesses forming. And how do we make the transition? And by exploiting and exploring, and by looking particularly at step change projects, by engaging with startups, we can start to prepare ourselves to make the jump to that new S-curve that's forming. In order to create an innovative culture, live up to the brand. We have a brand that says we bring good people, good things to people. I see many of those. This is something you need to do. Defend your business value. Create new business value. I also think it's the right thing to do. If you look at the state of the planet, we got to change some things. So maybe ask yourself, your company, your board, your supervisory board, are they really aware of the transition that is happening? Are they articulating the dilemma for the organization that something needs to be done? And are they using collaborative innovation to access external know-how? And very importantly, are you allocating real money to that explorative way of working in addition to the incremental, what you've been doing for the last 10 years? So I'm leaving you with those questions. Thank you for being part of your experience this week. And if there's a question, I'm not sure they will allow me to stay here. There seems to be a question. Is it?
Maybe one of my clients is a very small, innovative company, and they have a cooperation with a very big company, maybe the size of AkzoNobel, but it was not AkzoNobel. How do you make sure that your, let's say, the culture of those companies matches?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. And this is actually dealt with in that 3-day event. So when we do the 3-day event and we have all these sort of meetings with sales and marketing, with finance. So we actually look at two things. We look at sort of the business that we can create together. What's the business model? What's the financials? How do we divide the financials? Well, do we need to do a lot of work? You get a lot of money? It probably won't fly. The other way around won't fly. Okay, we need to do a lot of work and we divide that stuff. But the other stuff is the fit. The fit between people. And I think it's well known, but you really notice it in meetings like this. And if we sometimes have taken the decision, and this is so fantastic, we need to do it. Okay, these people, well, maybe it may be a bit difficult. It's a lot more difficult in those cases. So that fit is super important. We assess that.
Thank you very much, Peter. It was really interesting.